Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Canadian Institute of Ukrainian Studies Sheptytsky Institute roundtable on Ukrainian Orthodoxy and the question of autocephaly, the religious and political dimensions of the conflict between Constantinople and Moscow. We're grateful for the sponsorship, not only the Sheptytsky Institute and the Canadian Institute of Ukrainian Studies Toronto office, but also for the Petro Yatsik Program for the Study of Ukraine, the Center for European, Russian, and Eurasian Studies, and the Department of Slavic Languages and Literatures of the University of Toronto. So this is a great collaborative effort by many of the divisions within the University of Toronto and the Toronto School of Theology. After some brief introductions, we'll have the panelists say a few words regarding the topic, which we almost canceled today because of the monumentous decision which happened in Constantinople, and we were all busy rewriting our speeches early on in the day. So you may hear us stutter and realize that we've made mistakes in terms of historical time lapses. There will be some video recording of this event, and so if you have any objections to the recording, you can just kind of hide in the back corners. First off, let me just do some introduction of our panelists, and then we'll begin our panel for this afternoon. Sitting to my immediate right is Very Reverend Archpriest Dr. Jaroslav Skira. He has researched in systematic Orthodox theology, particularly theology of the Church and the situation of the Church in Ukraine, with interest in relationships among the churches. He's a parish priest of St. Volodymyr Ukrainian Orthodox Cathedral in Toronto, and was the former director of the Metropolitan Ilarion Center of Orthodox Studies in Winnipeg, Manitoba, a lecturer of systematic theology, ethics, and patristics at St. Andrew's College and the University of Winnipeg, obviously in Winnipeg, Manitoba. He has graduate degrees from the Holy Cross Greek Orthodox School of Theology and a doctorate from the Christian Theological Academy in Warsaw, Poland. He is the author of 4 books and over 50 theological articles and analyses in various journals and presentations. He's given nationally and internationally. That may be a sign. There might be is there a lights? Okay. I thought there was some kind of divine sign here. Just to continue with the introduction of Father Butsiora, he is also a representative of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church of Canada and the USA in the ongoing bilateral dialogue with the Ukrainian Catholic Church in North America. To my left is Dr. Frank Sisson. He's the director of the Peter Yatsik Center for Historical Research at the Canadian Institute of Ukrainian Studies here in Toronto. He's also professor in the Department of History and Classics at the University of Alberta, and he's editor in the very important Hrushevsky translation project on the history of Ukraine Rus, and they've got 10 volumes published to date, and so that's an immense task that he's completed. He's also the head of the executive committee of the Holodomor Research and Educational Consortium at the CAUS, and is a member of the editorial board of Harvard Ukrainian Studies and East-West Journal of Ukrainian Studies. There's many more things that I could say about him, but he told me I could cut down his biography. To my far right is Mr. Anatoly Babinsky. He has a Master's of Arts in Theology from the Ukrainian Catholic University, yes. And he's working on his doctoral thesis on the patriarchal movement in the Ukrainian Greco-Catholic Church. He's currently also a research fellow at the Sheptytsky Institute under a doctoral research grant from the Catholic Near East Welfare Association. He's from 2007 to 14. He was a journalist and editor of the well-known Religious Information Service of Ukraine. He was also, in that similar time period, the head of the Analytical Center for the Institute of Religion and Society, also in Ukraine, and served as the editor-in-chief of Patriarchat. And from 2015 to 18, he's the vice president of. He was the vice president of. Or is the vice president of Unum Omnes, the International Council of Catholic Men, And last but not least, my name is Professor Jaroslav Skira. I'm the founding director emeritus of the Graduate Center for Theological Studies of the Toronto School of Theology, which is an affiliate of the University of Toronto. I'm also a professor of historical theology at Regis College, also at the University of Toronto. And I'm the acting director of the Sheptytsky Institute. And you can look me up on the internet if you want to see what I've published. But my most recent works was a critical translation of the Second Vatican Council diaries of Metropolitan Maxim Hermaniuk. By way of contextualizing some of the discussion that we had begun amongst ourselves in planning this session, and I want to thank Professor Sisson for work in doing this. We had planned this a number of weeks ago, that we thought that this was such an important task that we should organize a round table and get this going, and it certainly was providential that today we had the announcement from the Ecumenical Patriarchate of the lifting of some of the condemnations of the hierarchy and the declaring the canonical status of the some of the Ukrainian Orthodox jurisdictions in Ukraine. So some of what I'm going to say may be a little bit pedantic, but we're kind of setting the stage for a broader discussion for some of the issues that the other speakers will raise. I think most of you are aware that in Ukraine there exist three jurisdictions of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church. The one was the so-called Ukrainian Orthodox Church Moscow Patriarchate. The other one was the Ukrainian Orthodox Church Kievan Patriarchate, and here I scratched out in my notes, was not considered canonical by other churches, but scratch it out. Now it's considered canonical by the other churches, and the Ukrainian Autocephaly Orthodox Church. And our debate here is, and our discussion here is about some technical terms and concepts within Eastern Orthodox theology and canon law. The first one deals with this kind of odd word, autocephaly. It basically has its roots in Greek for being self-governed or self-headed. And that's distinct from another term that declares that the Ukrainian Orthodox Church of the Moscow Patriarchate was considered an autonomous church. So here we have a quasi-independent body as an autonomous church, and then you have a formal body that's considered a self-governing church with a patriarch typically at its head, with its holy synod in governing its mission and its life and its pastoral responsibilities for its faithful among its territories. What is also at stake here in these debates, as part of this whole process leading towards the discussion about the declaration of the autocephaly of the Ukrainian Orthodox or a Ukrainian Orthodox Church, is who is the one who grants such autocephaly, who is the first among the many patriarchs or patriarchates in the world who can initiate or begin such a process, and what are the best steps to initiate that. And some of this deals with historical territorial jurisdictions. Mostly these territorial jurisdictions corresponded to historical nation states. For example, in Russia you would have the Russian Orthodox Church, in Ukraine you would have a Ukrainian church, and in Serbia, and so on. And these historical jurisdictions don't include what we would have as part of the diaspora, which would be kind of extra territorial nations. The modern historical context does have some examples of conflicts or challenges to this issue of who becomes a body for declaring autocephaly and how that's recognized amongst other Orthodox churches. At the start of this 20th century, the Ecumenical Patriarchate, which is considered the first among equals, that is one of the most senior sees of patriarchs within all of Eastern Orthodoxy, and hereby I mean Byzantine and Slavic Orthodoxy. In Poland, the Ecumenical Patriarch granted autocephaly to the Polish Church in 1923, which was then regranted by the Russian Orthodox Church, and I say regranted in quotation marks, in 1948. And so here's that tension between a granting body of autocephaly and this challenge by the Russian Orthodox Church. And we all understand that this was part of the post-war years and the Cold War years, and at times the persecution of all of these Orthodox faithful. Another example of this tension of the granting of autocephaly occurred with the Orthodox Church of Estonia, which was granted this autocephalous, the self-governing status, in 1923 and then 1996. And I say again in 1996 because there was a period where the Russian Orthodox Church took under its omophorion, or under its jurisdiction, this Orthodox Church in Estonia. And then we have another controversy over the granting of autocephaly to the Orthodox Church in America, which is largely considered an indigenous church to both Canada and the USA, which was granted by the Russian Orthodox Church, but has been not regarded by a number of churches as uncanonical. So here we have examples of historical tensions in this understanding of autocephaly. And related to that, the Orthodox churches had began a historic process in the 1930s, leading towards what happened in 2016, which was the convocation of a Holy and Great Synod of all the Orthodox churches. But they began their preparations in the 1930s. And the topics that were mentioned during those various pan-Orthodox and preparatory meetings are somewhat prophetic of what happened today. One of the first topics that was raised was the question of autocephaly, and by the means by which it is proclaimed, and the recognition of canonical and non-canonical churches. In 1948, the Pan-Orthodox preparatory councils met in Moscow, where they condemned anti-Christian papism, and this was part of a critique, a polemic against the Roman Catholic Church. In 1961, again, the Pan-Orthodox consultations begun their discussions about preparing these documents for the Synod and the autocephaly, and how that is given to a church. Again, was a subject of discussions with no formal resolutions, no formal document produced. In 1976 and 1986, the preparatory commissions to this council also dealt with topics of peace, freedom, and brotherhood, and love, and the dignity of the persons as being documents or issues of pastoral care for the Orthodox faithful. I mention that in light of the conflict that currently exists within Ukraine and parts of the Middle East. And so this is somewhat prophetic of our current context. In 2016, however, in discussions amongst the Orthodox bishops, the topic on autocephaly was deferred to another pan-Orthodox synod, so it was put aside. And Antoine Ayerkovsky, some of you may know, is a very famous Orthodox theologian. He says he lamented that this was one of the most important issues and one of the most serious conflicts tearing the Orthodox Church apart today. In 2016, the Great and Holy Council of the Orthodox Church met in Crete, and it did have a number of constitutions and documents dealing with pastoral ministry, fasting, and it only dealt with the topic of autonomy, but not autocephaly, which was a distinct topic. And here again is an interesting facet in that this synod, which brought together all of these Orthodox bishops and patriarchs from around the world, the Russian Orthodox Church refused to attend this meeting, as did a few other Orthodox churches. The modern historical context, I think my fellow roundtable panelists will allude to some of these events leading to the events that happened today, beginning with Petro Poroshenko's request to Constantinople for a tomos of autocephaly. And so when you look at this past history and some of the debates that are going particularly on in the press about the notion of autocephaly, church independence, territorial jurisdiction, and not just between the Russian Orthodox Church or the Ecumenical Patriarchate or the Ukrainian Orthodox churches, the question really revolves around a number of issues. The first of those being authority and primacy in the church. And who is historically recognized as the mother church that can grant such a tomos or a declaration of autocephaly. The Ecumenical Patriarch has consistently affirmed its right to be, as the senior among churches, to initiate such procedures. Another important point that's often missing in some of the critiques of the Ecumenical Patriarchate and the Orthodox churches is the notion of the pastoral care and Christian unity. Archbishop Jacob of Telmessos, who was a representative of the Ecumenical Patriarchate, has said, how can you tolerate a 30-year division of the Orthodox churches in Ukraine and the schism, and how does the church respond to the care and the salvation of such souls? And he basically spoke about this autocephalous, or the movement of the Ukrainian churches, as being a move toward a restoration of historical justice, and a move from a colonization, and a move towards a liberation that would have a redemptive dimension for the faithful. But again, you don't hear that language in some of the critiques, particularly of the Russian Orthodox Church. I've already mentioned that part of the debates about autocephaly deal with historical canonical territories, whose territories are whose, when were they transferred, or who owned what when. And some of this has to do with official titles of the patriarchates. Does the Russian patriarch, can he affirm the title of Patriarch of Russia and all Rus Ukraine, or is there limits on that title, Patriarch of Russia, and what titles would the Patriarch of Ukraine declare? And so the issue of historical territories and canonical territories are another major issue. And a final issue has geopolitical dimensions, and is related to what some believe or call the myth of the Ruski Mir, or the Russian world. Very often we hear in some of the polemical literature, particularly of Putin, in the denigration and dehumanization of Ukrainians as being artificial, and an artificial state that was created by these violent Eastern Catholic uniats. The declaration of the Ukrainian government as being illegal, and so this is really a fight over, in some dimensions or some groups, a fight over claiming a part of history. And in Ukrainian historiography, the claim is also of an independent nation, descendant from the baptism of Vladimir and Ola in 988, and that claims that historical dimension. And there's attempts by the Russian Orthodox, a kind of a philosophy of Ruski Mir, which is rooted in a Eurasian movement, or a Slavophilism, which tends to claim part of this history. So, and the other question that we've kind of alluded to in our poster advertisement, to give you a little bit of a hook and to bring a little suspense, is to kind of what a future Ukrainian Orthodox, or an autocephalous Orthodox church might look like. And I had a few notes over here, but some of them may be no longer pertinent in light of today's declarations. But again, I've said too much already, and I would now turn it over to Father Butsiora.